All right, we're live on YouTube. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. And this is our 8th week. This is the final week of Paycheck Solution, and I'm really excited. We just had a great conversation in the green room about tonight's guest. It's Yanik Silver, and we're going to be talking about really connecting Paycheck Solution. Happens every week. Connecting our mind and our heart with our entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm really excited to have this conversation. Yanik, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Actually, even more, not just our entrepreneurial spirit, but connecting our head, our heart, and our highest purpose. So what were we made to do here? Why do we come here? That kind of level of thinking.
Awesome. I'm excited. I always say I love being in the front of the class. I get to be here front and center to get this great information. Yeah. Please, if you're out there, get the questions in as they come up. We can stop. We'll ask the questions. Keep them coming in. This is a great opportunity for every one of us to get those questions answered and really align our mind and our heart and whatever else to get ourselves going today. So, Yanik, what do you have for us tonight?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and start the show here for a second. Oops, should probably share screen first. Okay. One sec. All right. So I call this the coming business shift that can change everything, and this is really the result of me almost going out of business and finding these pieces that really were able to bring us back. And so maybe I should start with a little bit of my story, because I think that would be useful for some people. So our family, Russian immigrants, came over when I was 3 years old with my dad, my mom, my grandmother. My dad he actually just corrected me recently, so I had the wrong number, but I always say $256 in his pocket. Is maybe 286. I don't remember what the number. He remembers the exact number, but I keep going with 256. I need to double check it with him. But so growing up in an immigrant family, my dad within about 6 months started his own company, medical equipment sales and service. And so I was 14, I would telemarket. 16, the deal was I got a car, but only if I went out and cold called. And I don't know if you've ever cold called, Dave.
I have, actually. I've had pretty much every job in the book. So
yeah, there you go. So you know how awesome it is. And so, I'm this 16-year-old, basically, punk kid calling on 50, 60-year-old doctors. And that was a lot of fun. But I learned super early on. And then one of my doctors who I sold an entire surgery center to, he gave me a J. Abraham tape, and it really turned the lights on for me about, wow, you could actually write a letter. You could have people, in this case, doctors, raising their hands and be like, oh, I'm really interested. Let me, I'll be happy to talk to you. And then they had no idea I'm a 17-year-old kid. So that really just changed my dad's business. We went from a little regional player to a national player, and we were able to then to grow that way. My dad thought I'd take over the company, but I ended up working for a few other doctors, helping them with their marketing. And then, how one thing leads to the next. And so this was in 2000, the internet was just really starting to do some interesting stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, what's going on here? Maybe I could do something. And literally at 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up with an idea, which, by the way, I would suggest to anyone, when you have those ideas, that they become, as one of my mentors, this guy, Earl Nightingale, would say, that ideas are like slippery fish. You want to capture them and poke them with your pencil or pen. And so I did even better, as I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I created something called instant sales letters. And it was a little fill in the blank sales letter templates. And then that grew. Within about 3-4 months, we were on track to do 6 figures. And people were like, oh, how did you do that? Could you teach me? So then that turned into me helping other people share their information, their knowledge, their content, expertise, and sell it online. And I did pretty much all, anything you could imagine with that space and world. And then about 11, 12 years ago, and this is kind of where maybe some people are at as well, I call it the cosmic alarm clock moment. And it was this moment where you kind of have this little whisper, and it gets louder and louder, and you can either hit snooze on it, or you can keep doing what you're doing. And I think that every day that you're not doing what you're really meant to be doing, your soul dies a little bit. And so for me, the question that I asked, and I love questions because questions really create your answers. And the question I asked was, am I happy? Would I be happy doing what I'm doing 10 years from now? And so it's a really simple question. And from the outside looking in, incredibly successful, making a lot of money online, helping a lot of people. But if I was really honest with myself, I just wasn't happy. And so what I thought was that solution. I'm a big journaler. Maybe we can get into some journaling stuff in a little bit too. But so to me, that's one of the best success principles. And so I literally in my journal wrote, okay, what would make me happy? And I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and it's really these three interconnected circles of making more, having more fun, and giving more. So these three interconnected circles, like a Venn diagram, and we've actually changed that now to growth, impact, and fun, representing a tree. But so I was like, oh, let's go take my friends and these other amazing entrepreneurs on incredible adventures and trips, and we'll go Baja dune buggy racing, or go fly MiG jets, or we'll go do all this amazing stuff, and we'll have business sessions out there, and we'll also have a charity component. So it sounds really great. And then about $400,000 into it, my wife's like, what are you doing? And I didn't really have a great answer for her, aside from the fact that I knew there was something here, and it really made me look at my bigger why. And my bigger why was not to build an adventure travel company. It was what we say now is changing the way business is played. And so through that time period, I was able to meet some incredible business icons that are very well known, and then also not so well known, who all had pieces of this puzzle that really came together to what I call the evolved enterprise. And that's what we'll talk about here. So that's kind of where we are right now. And so this time, where we are in the world is it's really an opportunity to move from a transactional company to a transformational, to even a transcending company. And so a transactional company is that you're competing on price alone. There's not really much differentiation. And a lot of companies are like that, where there's not much brand loyalty. They're not really thinking about that. And a transformational company is that actually changes the identity of everyone who's associated with it. And then transcending, and I'll give you a bunch of examples, is it looks at the business model in a completely different way. And so this is the entire framework. This is what I was mentioning, these three interconnected circles. So that really became the nucleus of literally everything that I was continuing to do. So I had the essence right, but the expression was wrong. And when I finally pulled these pieces together, we had something like a 823% turnaround that happened when I got these pieces right and really connected that impact side and with all this. So this framework, and we'll be able to go over some of it, but so it's those three interconnected circles, and then you. So it really is about, this is a holographic aspect, right? So it has to start from inside out. And the you part, we call it evolution. It's helping you evolve as the founder, as the creator, as the entrepreneur. And that's, obviously a never ending process. I imagine, Dave, you continue working on yourself, because as you said, you're a front row student here.
Yeah, it's funny. If you heard me typing, I was just I screenshotted this picture. I love it. And yeah, I'm working on myself because I know what those three circles are in the middle. And I hope we go into a little more detail, but I love this picture.
Yeah. So almost if you just had this, you got it. And actually we've changed now that dollar sign to a tree to really represent more about growing yourself and growing your business. So it's, to me, not even about that dollar sign anymore. It's really about growth in all directions. And so the you piece is when at that moment when things were kind of the most sideways. And before that, I had 7 different products, services that all hit the 7-figure mark. Like it was really like this, that like it was never. And then this thing that I was so passionate about, I was like, what is going on? What's happening? And I easily could have sort of like gone back to, I call them, the golden handcuffs, gone back to the internet marketing, digital marketing world, but there would really not be much growth there for me. So I did the thing that pretty much every entrepreneur does, is that they took that leap, that following your heart. I say that following your heart is never wrong, but frequently scary. It's that, feeling like you're on that precipice. And then the other thing that I really believe in, and I have this plaque on my desk. It came from my journal, and it says, trust the universe has even more in store for you than you can imagine. Trust the divine timing. Trust your crazy ideas. Trust your wings will grow when you leap. Trust your nature. Trust you've been encoded with a cosmic alarm clock. Trust the signs, symbols, and synchronicity sent to you. Trust the co-conspirators catalyzing your conscious evolution. Trust the perfect unfolding of your understanding, and trust your divine connections. And so, anytime I think about what to do next, it's how would you act if you had that complete trust? And we've all, you can look back. So I do believe that we have clues that show up if you go back and think about times when you took that leap, whatever that leap meant to you. And it doesn't have to be burning the ships and being like, I'm going to do this or else, which is one way. Some people do that. But, for me, when I eased into entrepreneurship way back, when I was working for my dad, it was the very first thing I did was consulted with doctors. So they were the people I was already talking to, at that point. I had some trust built up with them. They already knew I was into marketing. I was good at marketing. So I started consulting and helping them with marketing. Then it turned into like the thinking of, well, where's bigger leverage there? And leverage is not just selling my time. So it was, well, maybe I could create a course or something like that. So then I created a course material that sold for $900 because I was teaching these doctors how to get cosmetic patients that are worth quite a bit. And then I'd advertise in these dermatologic journals and cosmetic surgery journals, getting leads of these doctors. And I remember the very first time that the fax machine came in with that order for $900. And it was just like, the most exciting possibility. And after I kind of peeled myself off the ceiling, I'm like, oh yeah, well now I need to get to work on this thing. And I'd clock out at 5 o'clock every single day and get to work till like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning on this course material for that product. And so, I continued sort of stair stepping my way up. And then I would take one day off. And I told my dad I was going to do that. Not everyone has that luxury, but right now there's so many things in flux that you might even have it forced upon you. And so I remember one of my buddies, and it's all in the way that you look at it. One of my buddies many years ago, he called me up and he's like, I just got fired. I'm like, dude, congratulations. He's like, no, you don't, I don't think you heard me, Yanik. I got fired. I'm like, yeah, no, I heard you. Congratulations. I'm like, that means that you now have the time to actually do what you've always wanted to do. And you know what? Why don't I help you think about it right now? So I poured myself a bourbon during the time when I used to drink a lot more. So I poured myself a bourbon. He had a beer, and this is over the phone. We didn't even have Zoom or whatever back then. And we literally mapped out something, and then we decided to become partners on a project that actually was incredibly well received. And we mapped it out right then and there. And now he's really at the top of his industry and still in that digital marketing space doing incredibly well. And it came from really looking at everything that's happened and being like, oh yeah, that's a positive thing and an opportunity to make that leap. So sometimes that cosmic alarm clock becomes a big glaring, banging that happens. And I do believe that the universe continues to sort of bang you on the head over and over again until you get the message, whatever that message is meant to be for you. And so that you piece is really looking deep. And so when I was in that period of time when I'm like, well, what is going on here? I really went back to like bedrock of success principles, because I've been a student of success principles for, I don't know, 25, 30, some maybe more, 40 years, even just a long time, not 40, 35 years, I'd say. And thinking about, okay, what was it? And then, and this might be a little bit different for some of the people listening, but it's always the same, is that identity was wrapped up in who you were as an entrepreneur, right? So your self-worth was so connected to your net worth, and it really forced me to look at, okay, what is going on here? And I, again, I could have easily gone back to what I knew, but there was something bigger, and I continued asking these big questions. And again, some of my favorite questions during this time period were, what would I do even if it would fail? So this is, kind of cribbed from Brené Brown in her book, Daring Greatly. And I love that question. So again, what would I do even if it would fail? Because it forces you to look at, what would I give my life to even if it didn't work? So many times we're so attached to the result. Oh, I'm going to do this, but only if it works, or if this makes me $100,000, then I'm really excited. But what would you do regardless? And that's part of the beauty of an evolved enterprise, is it actually allows you, again, to connect your head, your heart, your higher purpose. And we'll get into that in a second. But so looking at something like that and disconnecting our attachment, and there's a great spiritual book called the Bhagavad Gita that talks about that we're only entitled to our labor and not the fruits of our labor. And so by actually putting your full heart and soul into something, that's the reward in and of itself. And so this you piece is continuing to dig deep into who are you really? And when you find out who you really are or get closer to that, then you're able to figure out this next ring, which is the cause, which is your why. Like what do you want to, what wrong do you want to right in the world? What maybe, or what pain did you experience that then you want to alleviate for other people? Or what is the, your greatest reason why? So mine is to catalyze the catalysts, to bring, I call it lighting 1,000 suns who can each light another 1,000 suns, and to also nudge the consciousness of the world by just 1 degree using the leverage of business. And that, that 1,000 suns came from, I have a process of using your non-dominant hand to answer questions. And a friend of mine, Bill Donius, taught it to me. He wrote a book called Thought Revolution, and he taught it to our other Maverick members. And it's a great process of like this whole brain thinking. And so the question is, what would your 111-year-old self tell you? And so when I did that, when I was kind of in the midst of things going sideways, it was light 1,000 suns who can each light another 1,000 suns. And then we changed the name to Maverick 1000 to more accurately represent that. So that was, our cause is changing the way business is played through that capacity. So just a quick piece of the framework, and then we'll get into a bunch of examples. So creation is the actual product or service. And you need to kind of get out of this idea that I can't make money and do good in the world. And this is what Evolved Enterprise is really about, is connecting all those things. And the creation is you have an opportunity to bake in the impacts of the cause that you want to have, the why, into your product or service, which then builds this community of people who are just so excited by what you do that they can't wait to tell other people because they're aligned on your bigger mission. And then the culture is what you're building within your organization. So we don't have time to go into every single one of these, but I'm going to get into a bunch of examples. Go ahead, Dave.
Before we go any further, and just because for me, and I guess for anybody else, going back to that original slide, if you can, those 3 circles, and they're interjecting. So I'm assuming the center of where the 3 interject, the light blue, is really the point. But you've got money, you've got what you love to do, what you can make money at, and then what makes you happy. Is that what those 3 circles are?
So it's well, and again, this is a tree now, but it is, the easiest kind of shortcut for it is make more, have more fun, give more. So the heart piece is how do you want to, what do you want to give? What's the impact that you want to have in the world? And that's what Evolved Enterprise is really about. And believe it or not, these are all interconnected. And that's the interesting thing about it. So if we're only focused on one piece, the money piece, we can be focused on it to a certain extent, but then everything else is going to fall apart pretty quickly. And then you're going to be spending, you're going to be looking for, as you're going to be looking for your health. And that's not easy to get back. You're going to be looking for your meaning in your life. You're going to be looking for the joy and happiness. And so when we're so focused on just one part, it doesn't work.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I have a prediction, which is businesses without a core impact are going to be a competitive disadvantage in 4 to 7 years or less. And I actually said that a couple of years ago, and Forbes picked up on this, who said businesses who ignore this trend will be on life support in 4 to 7 years. And this is an opportunity to really have a core competitive advantage, because this is going to become par for the course. This is going to become just table stakes when you see what I'm talking about. So this is happening from the outside in. And so, Forbes called it a trend. I don't think it's a trend. This is really a seismic shift that's going on. Consumer buying behavior is changing. So this is from a work of research called Firms of Endearment. And they looked at companies that were purpose-driven, that had a greater mission, greater impact, and they outperformed the S&P 500 by 1,400% over a 15-year period. And what's really interesting is when you start incorporating some of this, it's usually, it's not like this right away. It's a little bit, and then it really takes off for the most part. But over time, it's massive. I actually have a new update on this, but I have a different slide for this. But you can see how it's continued to ratchet up. Is consumer buying behavior. Like, people want to buy from companies that have a greater purpose and meaning. They're willing to either pay the same and switch brands, or even pay more and switch brands. And that's really critical. And then the inside out, so that's the outside in, the inside out is top talent. So this is, especially millennials, that they're going to work even harder for companies that have a greater purpose and meaning. And in many cases that they're even they're willing to even get paid less if there's a greater purpose and meaning. So, people like Tony Hsieh from Zappos has talked about what I'm doing here, and he's really one of the icons of this movement. People like Richard Branson, people like Russell Simmons, like Blake Mycoskie from Tom Shoes. Like, so all of them have looked at this and said, yeah, this is what's happening. And it can go by different names. So I call it evolved enterprise. It's conscious capitalism, triple bottom line, for benefit companies. There's a lot of ways of looking at it. And some people are like, oh yeah, well, that's just giving back. And this is definitely not giving back. It's so I started off as a copywriter. So words are incredibly important. I think our words create our world. And so by saying giving back and even falling into that sort of trap that we've been sometimes programmed into, that implies that we've taken something. And as entrepreneurs, we're value creators. That's the only way that we are in business. And I remember very early on in one of my journals, I wrote, I get rich by enriching others 10x to 100x in return for the value that I create for them. And so that's a huge piece. And so what we're talking about is bigger than giving back. It's creating a greater impact and then aligning it with that diagram. So I just threw up a quick example of during this time, this period of this moment in history when we're in this COVID time. This is a company called LTHJKT. So leather jacket is what it stands for. And they put out a promotion recently, basically saying people before profits, from the founder, saying that that they were going to give 100% of their proceeds of the sale to their employees, and this is what they wanted to do. So I love the way. So what they did is a name your own price opportunity, and so for the 2 weeks that they had that opportunity, and then you can see what they did was they put here. So that's some really cool gear, but they put here, okay, here's what the retail price, what this supports at 25% off. This is what it supports at 35% off. This is what it supports and 50% off. So it's like, it gives people a really good reason why, which is a great thing to do in advertising, and B, a greater purpose and meaning, and tied it back into helping support their team, which I thought was amazing. So I'm going to get into some other examples here. So a lot of people know Tom Shoes when they think about maybe some of these social enterprises. That Tom Shoes was the buy one, give one shoes. And I interviewed Blake a couple of years ago, and I remember we're sitting there on the panel, and all he would talk about was, not all, but a big thing he would talk about was we've given away 35 million pairs of shoes. And because I call that an impact scoreboard, because everyone can point to that and say, this is the impact that we've made. And 35 million pairs of shoes given away was profitably that they could sell 35 million pairs of shoes as well. Now, Blake would tell you, the same as he told me, like, he never expected Tom's to be that big. So there are some downfalls to that model, which is that they take away marketplace, especially from where they do their shoe drops and so forth. So, it's become difficult to give away that many pairs of shoes without really affecting the marketplaces. So this model, so I have 11 different, I call them evolved impact models in evolved enterprise. And this model of buy one, give one can definitely work. So this company has done really well with it, called Bombas Socks. Have you ever seen them?
No.
The sock company. So they've gotten pretty big. So they started off only a couple of years ago, and two founders were watching TV, and they saw something that said, again, paying attention, right? Having that awareness. What's that cosmic alarm clock moment? So they saw this, and they said the socks are the number one most requested clothing item at homeless shelters. They're like, well, we could maybe donate some socks, but what if we could do something bigger? And what they did was created a better sock that they would give away, which I love, right? So it's a dark colored sock. It's antimicrobial, it's reinforced seams, so it's a better sock. And then so you buy a pair of socks, and they donate a pair of socks. And their socks are awesome. I have a bunch of them. They're really well done, which is the other thing. You can't just have a crappy product or service and slap on some of this impact side and be like, oh, great, well, this is what we're doing. It probably could work for a little while, but you need to have everything together, and that's when it starts turbocharging what you're doing. So the founders, one of them said, well, if we a million pairs was that dream, and he thought it would take 10 years. And he said, I'll get a tattoo if we do that. It took them 2.5 years using this model. And then this is really cool. Then they started blowing up. And so now they work with bigger companies as well. So this is the other thing that really happens with evolved enterprises is you get this halo effect. So bigger partners want to come in and work with you. because of the impact side of what you're making. So then there's an opportunity of co-branding in some way. You know, all these companies are much bigger than Bombas, but they're excited to be associated with Bombas because of their giving piece. And then they also would go as far as like maybe organizing a team building activity for the company to go do the sock drops and so forth. So really interesting. And now they've 35 million pairs of socks and shirts given away. And this is only in like, I want to say like 4 or 5 years, like maybe 5 years. It's been maybe 6. I have to go back and look, but it's like unbelievable. So this is another company that uses a similar but different model. This is having a direct impact. And so this is a company called 4Ocean. I actually have one of their bracelets on right now. So we did an ocean event with Maverick members. And so for what happens with this is you buy a bracelet and they pull out a pound of trash out of waterways. And so they pull out that trash and then they recycle that trash and turn it into these bracelets, which I think is really fascinating. So it's a very direct benefit. And you can see here their reviews. You know, they have almost 20,000 reviews, really, really well. And then this to me is really exciting, right? The impact scoreboard. So total recovered since 2017. We're doing this interview in 2020, 3 years ago, 9.7 million pounds of trash recovered, which also means that they've sold 9.7 million bracelets, right? So pretty powerful. And they've really gone on to be like, you know, we're not a bracelet company. We're an ecological company.
I was going to say the product is really is a sidebar to the vision, to what they're getting done. That's pretty cool.
It's very cool. And they also have a tracker where you can see, and they have stories about what they're doing. And this, you know, this is just so much bigger than just being in business. This is, you know, we talk about transcending. So now, you know, again, companies, big companies especially, are not dumb. They see these trends, they look at it and like, great, you know, let's tie in what we're doing. So this is from a couple years ago where they had pink buckets of chicken, and 50 cents would go to the Susan G. Komen Foundation. And I'm like asking my friends, I'm like, I don't get this. What the hell does this, like, what's the tie-in? They're like, dude, they sell breast of chicken. This is breast cancer. I'm like, oh,
chicken breast. Yeah.
I'm like, that makes no sense for me. And as you know, in the healthcare space, you know, a diet high in saturated fat has been linked to cancer. Completely, you know, messed up here, which means that they would get a backlash on social media, what they did. So the other piece of this is, as an evolved enterprise, transparency, you know, things come out more, and also we're in a highly interconnected society. And so you have to be on top of your game, but now don't be scared of doing some of these things if it's done in an authentic, genuine way, because your customers will actually be more forgiving, again, if it's done in a, you know, in a way that is genuine. So I love Patagonia. They're one of my favorite companies that has really been at the forefront of this. And so this was an ad that they ran on Black Friday. So this is an example of complete reverse psychology in marketing, right? So they basically said, don't buy this jacket on the day that most companies are trying to get people to buy and spend and consume. And they said, hey, you know, think about reducing what you buy. Maybe you don't need this. Could you repair it? Could you reuse it? Could you recycle it? Like, just complete different, you know, thought process. And this is why they're really at the forefront of this. And they've recently just changed their entire company's mission to be all about the earth, to just simply be about how do we improve the earth. And so they're incredible in what they do. And by the way, this also translates to making more. And that's the other thing that I talk about, is that you can actually make more by doing this. And this year, when they did that, their revenues were up 40%. So this is an opportunity to truly kind of like get out of this paradigm of you can either make money or you can do good or whatever that you want to make. But it literally, so companies that do this, again, you know, as we showed, like, they make more. They also have customers that are more engaged. They have their team members that are more engaged. They have better, you know, A players want to show up and work for them. They have more opportunities for PR, for partnerships. And so this is a small company. You know, we're going to start off small. We're not going to be Patagonias tomorrow. This is a small little apparel company in Florida, and this uses impact model number 3, which is a percentage or a dollar amount. And so, you can already see they've gotten some pretty good publicity. And so they just have these little bits of jewelry that are all related to sea turtles. And they have their sweatshirts and so forth. And they're committed to this little group in Palm Beach. I've actually been down there. It's the Gumbo Lumbo Foundation or something like that, which is all about sea turtle conservation. And so you can see here, they gave away a $26,000 check, pretty good. I mean, not millions and millions of dollars, but pretty cool. But they donate 20% of their net profits to this marine research lab. But what's fascinating to me here, and this is what I really like, is you can see in the reviews of their product how it's directly tied in, right? Like, so that, again, the product has to be cool and good. So it's beautiful, unique, blah, blah, blah. Feels good to know I'm helping a cause. Couldn't be happier with my sweatshirt. Sweatshirt is awesome, blah, blah, blah. I'd highly recommend this brand to people. Amazing products with an even better backstory. I bought the hoodie. Even more awesome that it helps with ocean preservation and awareness, right? So people want to be connected to something bigger. This is how we're hardwired to be part of something bigger. And it's got to be with integrity, though, and genuineness. And that's where that diagram again of how do we have the cause that really relates. So as smart marketers, let's think about how do we use this as a way to actually drive our revenue. So these are my friends, Joel Marion and Josh Bozzoni, who run a pretty big supplement company. And they submitted this example to me for the Evolved Enterprise book, which I really love. So this is impact model 4A, donate what you want. And this is what they used on their shopping cart. And they tested a lot of different things. And they actually added a donation button, with a couple different things that you could choose. And this, believe it or not, improved their conversion by 15%. So it was no money out of their pocket. And it was simply, customers wanted to make a difference when they're in that process too. So again, it changed their identity of their customers, that they wanted to make a difference. And now they've gone on to be like one of the biggest Make-A-Wish grantors in Texas. And it's really fascinating to think about this. So, you can look at where are the leverage points in our company. And I think of it as 5 different ways, not just the money that you can raise, but so it's your talent within the organization. It is your voice or distribution. It is your supply chain. Who are you buying from? It's what I call empowered employment. And I'll show you a couple examples of that in a moment. And it's the actual product or service itself. Like you saw by taking out some of the trash and having that tied into it. So there's a lot of ways of really incorporating this and having that leverage. And that's where it gets exciting. And so as marketers also, you can think about, okay, how do we use this to grow our business? So this is a company called Uncommon Goods, and they're a mail order company where they have web and mail order. And what happens, this is on their thank you transaction page. At the end of it, they say, hey, we appreciate you, and we'll donate $1 to any of these charities of your choice. So it's $1 out of their pocket, and that's really nice. And then they've donated over $1 million. And then on the thank you page to this one is, hey, if you share this, we'll double your donation, basically to $2. So now they're acquiring customers via this opportunity. So, you need to look at customer acquisition, right? Like, can it cost us less to do something like this from a marketing standpoint? And again, this all has to be done with integrity and authenticity, but it's really powerful when that happens. So I'm going to get into some more unusual examples. This is impact model number 6, source matters, where you're looking at the source of what your product or service is. And this is all these accessories and things are made out of fire hose. The 2 founders are walking down the street I think in the UK one day, and they saw a massive amount of fire hose outside a fire station. They're like, oh my God, that's going to go out into the landfill. And oh my God, this could be amazing material. What can we make with this? And so they created belts and wallets and DOP kits and all sorts of things. I have a belt and a wallet, and I love it. It's great material. And now where it's fascinating to me is a full circle is so all this material comes from fire hose. 50% of their profits go back to fireman and women charities. So it's a beautiful full circle kind of place. This is empowered employment. This is an example of a transcending company for sure. This is a company called Ultra Testing. And what they do is they do quality control testing for across different browser platforms and different operating systems. And they thought, okay, so this is what they do. and they thought, okay, let's prove that neurodiversity is a competitive advantage. So that means that they hire people on the autism spectrum to do this kind of work, because typically, stereotypically, people on that spectrum will have more attention to detail and are better with repetitive tasks. So it turns into a competitive advantage instead of a disadvantage. And I love that.
Very cool.
So, that's one of my favorite examples of empowered employment. This is another company called Sarah Oliver Handbags, where she started just hand knitting these bags. And then, just like the way everything starts small, and then people are like, oh, this is really cool. Can I buy some? Can you sell where can I buy these? And retailers started asking her if they could carry them. And then she started calling on other retailers. And of course, a lot of people will tell you, well, go to Asia, go get this made, get it mass produced. She's like, no, I want it handmade. And so what they did, and she also learned she learned knitting from her, I think, grandmother. So she went to one of the local nursing homes and said, hey, are there any of you that want to, knit these bags for me? And so now they're called the Pearlettes +1. And you can see here that the average age is 88, which I love. And they're called the Pearlettes +1 for the one male knitter. And so it gives even more meaning. It gives more of a story. It's just a really beautiful way of integrating a lot of things.
That's incredible. That's great.
Yeah. So again, you can do so many things that are really powerful and able to change a lot of lives. This is another one of my favorite examples. I just visited them in Kenya when I was there on safari, and to see what they're doing. Originally, they started as, so each of those bags that you see here were given to these community health workers as a microloan. And so with the micro, they'll pay it back. Usually a micro loans in the amount of $50 or $100 or $150. And inside those bags were life-saving medication, malaria nets, water purification tablets, all sorts of things. And they would go off to these rural villages and then sell these things and become the community health worker for those villages that really weren't getting the healthcare that they needed. And so they were becoming mini entrepreneurs, and so it's an ethical opportunity. Now they've switched, where Kenya has their own different states within the country, and some of the states are now paying them a stipend to go do this because they're showing the amazing work that they have. They showed us this. They've really built out this amazing CRM that travels via it's not an iPad but another tablet, and then they can track and be able to really help so many people out in the world. It's really powerful. So this is an example of looking at what is your skill set, what's your talent that you have within your organization. And it doesn't, again, always have to be money. So this company will create soups and sell them. And so what their skill set is creating these recipes and then packaging them up. So they work with a local food bank, and they take all the food that might be, that's going to sit on the that could go rotting. And they shut down their plant for one day a month and say, okay, give us everything you got. We're going to create some fun recipes and do some different stuff. And then they package them up and make them into non-perishable products. And you have to imagine that's really fun for their team as well, and really engaging to be able to be creative about the ingredients that they get, plus to know that they're doing something really powerful and meaningful for the exact business that they're in. So there's so many ways of doing this. And this works incredibly well, right? So it's my Steve Cunningham, a friend of mine who runs a company called Read It For Me, and they saw a 15x different, really adding and aligning with charities and doing what they were doing. This is one of my other buddies who started using this, and he did split tests, which is split tests are really the highest level of knowing if one thing's going to work, because you show somebody one page and another person sees another page. And so they split tested it, and they saw 100% increase in sales conversion. And then he got back to me via Skype, and he said, hey, I have advertisers basically chasing us and giving us better deals because of the impact that we're making. And so it's really powerful. This is a Maverick member who had just a really, somewhat generic product. It was a coffee grinder. And he said, okay, well, what's a bigger meaning of a coffee grinder? So again, moving from transactional to transformation to maybe even transcending. So he said, that moment when you just have that one moment of mindfulness when you're just sipping your coffee or smelling it, like that moment. I want to be about that moment. And he called it the stay grounded movement. And then he created even a podcast around it, which then turned into him now, going on beyond this. I think he might have even sold a portion of his company, maybe all of it, I don't know, but it turned into something bigger. And then they were able to also connect it to some amazing work that they're doing in their communities through this stay grounded movement. And then this guy, Damon John, on the Shark Tank, he's seen pretty much everything, right? So Raj got a meeting with him, and Damon said, hey, this made me look at traditional product in a whole different way because of the greater mission and purpose that is an evolved enterprise. So again, this is the framework. This is what it comes back to. And we didn't have time to go over everything. We're really mostly in this piece, but it starts from you, starts from your cause, and then it builds out into what that is.
Incredible. And I'm seeing how the community and the culture plays a big role in that. And if you come, thinking of a product, even if you have an existing business, it really trying to put it together with that next level of distribution or understanding is incredible.
Right. Yeah. With an existing company, you can experiment with it with, maybe doing it as one portion of one product line. It could be an experiment over a sale promotion period, or you could just go all in and be like, this is what we're doing, really connecting back into your why. And then when you're building from scratch, this is a real powerful piece. And what the opportunity is the world needs us more than ever, right? The refugee crisis, the opioid crisis, the incarceration crisis, I could go on and on. The number of at-risk species for the world, you just name it. So the global goals were developed by the UN. I was actually there at the UN on the day that they came out, and coincidentally or not coincidentally enough, it was on my birthday. So I have a special affinity here for them. And there's 17 global goals that the UN put out. And this is the first time that they actually actively engage business. I don't know if you've ever seen this. Not everyone has seen this in a big way. So they still have a long way to go, but they looked at it and then created key metrics for each of these pieces. And so you can think about, okay, what does what we do align with each of these pieces? And it's really, really powerful. And for me, my favorite one that I get most excited by is partnership for the goals, is bringing together diverse people to be working on each of these pieces. And so that's where you start getting examples like these social enterprises. Like there's a company called Homeboy, which is a nonprofit, but they're really a social enterprise. So they take people who've come out of prisons many times, or they've been in gangs, and they put them to work, training them, giving them ways of, if there's an addiction, if there's ways of dealing with, trauma, and it gives them another gang, which is their business gang. And so for 30 years, they've been at work doing all this stuff. And then they've created all these spin-offs, which are then operated by Homeboys. And it's just really, really powerful. So it can grow in so many ways. So incredibly powerful. And then I say that, this literally is your open door that awaits for what you want to do and how you want to do it. And that's the book. I highly suggest picking that up.
Now, I'm just having my brain's going a million miles a minute here, because I'm thinking about, the idea, paycheck solution, how could we create income for ourselves in a time like this? And so, the one thing I've learned through this program and some of these programs with Revealed Films is that, to create money, you have to create value in the world. So,
Right.
So the question is, starting a business. So what problem are you trying to solve? And you can think very linear about that, or one dimensional, and then we're thinking about what is the problem after you solve the problem that you could solve. It's like, you can really go, so as you sit down and create, it's just, where you want to go with this, it's almost unlimited.
Well, as we mentioned at the very beginning, this connecting your head, right? This sort of business side, the marketing side with your heart, like what do you truly want to do out in the world? Like what is that thing that you want to solve? And then your highest purpose, aligning all of it. And that's where things really start happening. And that's when it's really, really exciting. And again, that's why I say your open door awaits. It's like, how do you want to step into it? You can step into it tiptoe in, or you'd be like, no, this is what I care the most about. I care about, helping animals. I care about doing whatever. And you can, if people want, we can brainstorm live a little bit, if you know, that's some of my favorite work to do too, and see how to incorporate all of this into what you really care about.
Yeah, so listeners and viewers that are out there right now, we're bridging to the Q&A part of tonight. So I know you have questions, and don't be afraid to ask them. We're asking them right now. But let us know what this is stimulating. What kind of thoughts this is stimulating right now as you're thinking about this. This is week 8. You've exposed to different types of businesses, right? Maybe you're creating one. Maybe you're adapting your current business or wherever you are. How is this conversation hitting you? What are some of the problems you're choosing to try to solve for people? And then what are some higher order problems in the world that maybe you never thought about your business, your company, your product, how it could impact the world? So this is great conversation for us to have. I mean, I can ask these questions myself, but let's hear some questions from you guys that are out there. I see you out out on the YouTube there. So let's get those questions in. I love the idea of the cosmic alarm. We are in one. I mean, if you haven't had one before, I bet you many people are having them right now. Maybe they're a little nervous, maybe a little afraid to pull the trigger. But I think it's just such a wonderful time if you ever were thinking about starting something new. I mean, there's so much change going on right now. So thinking about your current situation, is that something you want to be doing for the next 5, 10, 20 years? Are you happy with what you're doing? Is this a time that you could find, just really sit with yourself and find out what really motivates you? I know you work with a lot of people. Before we even go there, right? There's some ways that we want people to be able to stay in touch with you. So I've got 2 websites, evolvedenterprises.com, Yanik Silver. Which one where do you think we could really people need?
Evolvedenterprise.com, singular is good, or Yanik Silver, YANIK silver.com is my blog. I occasionally blog on, and in both of those spots you can get a copy, 3 chapters of the Evolved Enterprise, to check it out. And don't worry, I won't incessantly email you or bother you. It's an opportunity to download it and enjoy it. I was just going to put up, Dave, as this, as we are in this transition time, it's a time for dreaming as well. And so these are, this is something that I created. It's actually, let me just make it a tiny bit smaller so you can see all of it. Is every single day for 108 days, I drew and illustrated a journal page. And this is one of my favorites, which is, you cannot have within you a true dream without also having the way. And so whatever is this dream that's been planted in you in some way, almost like a seed, like you can't help but actually go continue to forge forward with it. And as you move forward, even just a little bit, I really believe that, I love this Rumi quote on the bottom, which is what you seek is also seeking you. And it's like, as we move forward towards it, especially if it's in alignment with serving the whole and serving the collective in a bigger way, things just open up in this magical context, like allies show up and resources. But it doesn't happen by us sitting around kind of pontificating and thinking about doing something.
So true. And so our first question, right? So we have those links in the side chat. Also, if you have any questions, we'll send them out through customer service. But Tiago Marquez. Sorry about that. Even when we are in desperate state financially, how can we focus on who we want to serve and who we want to be instead of only focusing on the income?
So, you have to take care of yourself, right? If you're feeling not whole, it's going to be really hard to go out and go save the world. So that's why in the diagram, it starts with you, and you is you understanding yourself as well as bringing security for yourself. Now, security for yourself doesn't mean, X millions of dollars or whatever it is. It's simply making sure that you're in a spot where you feel like you're okay to go out there. Now, at the same time, we do know that every time that we help someone else, we feel better. And every time we do something that has greater meaning, it shows up as greater value. So as you're thinking about it, again, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can be thinking about, how am I going to make more money? But again, how do I pair it with this greater impact? And just knowing what you know, knowing who you know, knowing what you're seeing out there, there's probably an opportunity for you to be of service, and that is going to generate income for you.
This conversation and a couple of other ones we've had over these weeks and months during this tragedy is for me, being in this class, and we've even talked about it before, has really helped to hear the perspectives and the views of reality of people like yourself. Not knowing, people are in a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty about life. And what's been really interesting and cool with tonight and some of it has been the fact that it's great to hear people who are looking for ways to help others and the opportunities that can emerge from a crisis, whether it's this one or any of in the past, because it's to hear these conversations is inspiring. It allows us to see, in our little bubble that many of us may be at home or in a place where it's been kind of scary to go out and worrying about ourselves and our family. And so these conversations have been just inspiring, if nothing else, to really kind of tap into your mind and hear where you're coming from. So appreciate that.
Yeah. And one other thing that I would add, and I don't know what your practices are. That is a Tiago. So I don't know, exactly. And this is for everyone out there is that you need to, if you have any kind of, let's say, mindfulness practice or any kind of way of really centering yourself and processing things. So for me, it's journaling or yoga and meditation, like all these things, but there's a lot of other ways, exercise, obviously, all these things, like you have to make sure that you're even maybe doubling down on those. And because if you're, again, you can't pour from an empty glass. And that's, another kind of saying that I really do love is your glass has to be full in order to pour to others. But it doesn't only have to be full financially. You have to be making sure that you're taking care of yourself through the food that you have, through, the activities that you're doing each day. Like what are you doing? Are you drinking more or are you drinking less? Are you, are you getting your meditation? Are you, doing all these things that, I love experiments too, right? So I love, for me, these 33-day experiments, but it could be any number of days where you add something, you're like, oh, I've always wanted to, I don't know, meditate or whatever. Let me add that and see, but then you have a fixed endpoint and you're like, oh, did this improve my life? Did it not improve my life? If it did, let's add it. So I did things like, no sugar or no alcohol. And I'm like, okay, how do I feel? And then at the end of it, I'm like, I feel a lot better. So then I went to no sugar for only 1 day a week of sugar if I wanted it. So then it was just like, I still had that, but then it became part of my life.
So yeah, and those that take this opportunity to do that are seeing those results. These guitars behind me, I started taking guitar lessons in January.
There you
go. And it's my little fidget spinner. It's like the tone of sitting there playing guitar, and I've actually gotten pretty good at it. So
there you go. Yeah, I mean, cool. You can kind of just, it's all about your mindset, right? Like, do you want to come out of this better, or do you want to just survive?
Yes, mindset is huge. So and I want to ask about journaling in a second, but we got a couple of questions I want to get to. And first of all, Tiago did say thank you very much for that, answering the question. This one comes from Cami. I have been struggling to find my purpose statement with the new adventure I am working on. While you are speaking, I had an epiphany. I started writing down pieces of my mission. Thanks for the inspiration.
Nice.
Which leads into the journaling, which I wanted to ask questions about. So,
yeah. So the journaling. This is a thing that I just came out called the Cosmic Journal, and it was really written for myself. So I've journaled for years and years. I think journaling is one of those foundational success principles, and so it's one of the best ways of, especially as entrepreneurs, as leaders, really anyone. We have so much going on inside our heads that by putting it on paper, it creates a beginning, middle, and end on that page, and it allows it to move from our heads out onto paper. And then it opens you up to what's next, and you process things. So, journaling is not, oh, I ate an egg sandwich for lunch. It's the more you're going to get out of it is by actually digging in and going deeper. And so for me, I use it as a place for really uncovering, okay, how am I feeling? What's going on? What are some of my aspirations? What am I frustrated by? What are some of my big ideas? And I continue working through ideas in my journal. I continue, like, there's things that I've worked through literally for years and years in my journal that like at one point, so now it's 2020, I realized from 2012, I had been thinking about this one thing, this idea of the nudging of the consciousness from 1 degree forward using the leverage of business. I'm like, holy crap, I need to do something with this thing. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm putting it out there. And so that purpose statement, it can change too. You're gonna, what your essence is. And so there's so many great ways of getting there. I would highly recommend actually this Cosmic Journal, because I wrote it, I call it the Galactic Instruction Manual that you were missing when you were born to actually remember your destiny here. And it works like an oracle. So why don't we play a game? Ask Cami or I'll ask her, Cami, tell me a number between 3 and 189. And there could be an answer for you.
Just throw you out a number?
Yeah, or yeah, Cami. Ideally, Cami, not you.
Oh, Cami. Cami, we need you to.
Cami, you need a number between 3 and 189.
We're going to wait for that to come in.
Yeah, we'll wait for that.
This is the second time journaling has come up in the last week for me, but not from you as well. And I'm just wondering, when do you journal? Is it in the morning time, the night time, and what are you just writing? Just writing? How does that even work?
So, again, let's do an experiment, right? Like, so if you want to add it as something, and you can't have too many experiments going on at once, because you're like, oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to write thank you notes, and I'm going to meditate, and I'm going to, I'm just going to be the best person in the world. And then you're like, ah, shit, I messed up. And right. So, you want to add one thing, and journaling is one of my favorites. It's a great way of processing. So for me, it's before bed. So when you're creating that experiment, you want to create that block. So maybe it could be first thing in the morning, it could be midday, it could be evening. For me, evening is best. And then have that same block each day, or roughly. And then you only need like 10, 15 minutes. Like, it doesn't need to be that long. And I also love, I have a colored pen set. So, as a kid, I wanted to be a cartoonist and a professional hockey player. I wanted to be a pro hockey player and then a cartoonist in the off season. And then, so my journal, so this is like one of my actual journal pages. So that was like a journal page. And then this was like, as I'm like drawing and illustrating an idea and doing different things. So the colored pens really, really help with that. This is a new journal, so there's not too much in there. I just started it. But it's like a lot of people get freaked out because, oh, someone's going to read my journal, or what do I even write in there? So if you're worried about someone reading it, you can hide it, you can lock it up. Mine is pretty much in plain sight. And my daughter, who's 13 now, but a couple of years ago, she loves snooping around. She found this. She's like, Daddy, you write way too small and it's way too boring. I'm like, okay, well, thanks. And but again, you want to be honest in your journal, because that's where the power of it is. And then you're also going to find patterns, and then you're going to be able to go back to stuff. You'll be like, oh, what was I doing on this date, in on my birthday, or whatever date it is. And you start going back, and you're like, oh wow, that was a really good idea, or I thought that was a big deal, and I was worried about that, and look what happened. And then you start developing, these new muscles of seeing things unfold in these beautiful ways. So it's a really great practice. And then I have a lot of ways that I use it that are more creative and intuitive. Obviously, so I got all these pens, and so the drawing really helps. Using your non-dominant hand. So I'll ask questions in my journal and then answer them repeatedly using my regular hand, my right hand. But then I'll go back, use my left hand and answer, and you'll get really deep answers that way. And so you can do lots of things like that. And so I do different creative, intuitive aspects in my journal. There's a lot of things you can do with it, and there's no right or wrong way of journaling.
I believe this could possibly be an incredibly valuable practice to me. So
let's try it. All right, Dave. So
let's get to Cami, because it's not just about me. Cami,
hold on. Are we going to commit to an experiment? How many days?
I'm doing this. I'm going to do a 30-day or whatever. I already have blank notebooks. I'm ready to roll on this. I really do think, because my thought is, what's really going on? If there's a million things going on, is there anything valuable? I have a feeling when I start to write things down, there's going to be a lot of value, things that could create value, business type stuff, especially right now.
Everything type stuff, not just business, but it's literally everything. And usually when I first start writing about, you just have to get yourself writing. And then what you start writing about is usually not going to be what you end the page on anyway. It doesn't really matter. So, all right, Cami, what's her number?
172.
All right, 172. Actually, I'll throw it up on the screen. It'll be easier. All right, that's an interesting one. All right, hold on. So this was 108 days of 108. So I took on my own challenge, which was originally I saw this art challenge for 100 days. And I'm like, oh, that's a long time to do a piece of art every single day. And I'm like, what the heck would I even draw or do? And then I'm like, I love my journal and I love journaling art. So maybe I'll do a page every single day. And then for me, in the wisdom traditions, 108 has a greater meaning. So I'm like, I'm going to do 108. And so this, again, this turned into, this was really written for myself. And now I use it like an oracle and it's powerful. So for Cami, this is for you and probably someone else listening, which is you teach the way by living the way. And so meditation and mindfulness, full expression of unique talents, continual growth and expansion, powerful activation of language, gratitude and awe, love with a full heart, unite the head, heart, highest purpose, and happy inner child. That's a big one. Playfulness, intuitive knowing and cheerful expectancy without attachment, optimize physical body with nourishment and exercise, joyful abundance, divine destiny unfolding in everything, catalyze the cosmos, light 1,000 suns. Your actions shout so loudly that your words only whisper softly. And then as I've told my kids, and that's in the actually introduction, I think in acknowledgements of Evolved Enterprise, it says, I've only left guideposts for you, but they have to live on their own. So these to me are my guideposts, right? So if I can do this daily, I know that I'm having a great day. And I'm not always in alignment with each of these intentions. However, like I find that we can, whatever we want to teach, it's much more powerful to actually teach it by living it.
I love it. Wow. So that's just one day. That's just one page out of the whole thing. That's
one page. And then you'll have these little prompts and so forth right there. So it works like, again, a galactic instruction manual that you were missing at birth. And so each of these pages are hand drawn, and it was really written for me.
So that's the journal. So you have things written there, and then we journal in that book.
Yeah, you can journal in that book. Yeah, on the left-hand side. So there you go. That could be your journaling way of doing your 33 days or however many days you do, 30 days.
Very cool. And that's now, which website can we get that at?
So that's at cosmicjournal.com, or of course Amazon or wherever, but cosmicjournal.com. And we also have some limited edition versions of that have like vegan leather, really beautiful. And this was a really great example of following, so that challenge that I took on. In my journal, I wrote about like, all right, do I want to do this? I travel around a lot, and am I committed to this? Like, that's a big commitment every single day to draw one of these things. And I'm like, in my journal, I wrote, no, I think at the end of it, something great could happen. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'll be happier if I do it. And when you commit to yourself and follow through on those commitments, your confidence grows. That we're quicker to almost like renege on our own agreements that we make with ourselves than with someone else. But those agreements we make with ourselves, they are the things that bring us self-confidence and allow us to move on to bigger and bigger things. So that 108 days, the very first thing I did, I have my actual original one up on my shelf. I can grab it if you want, but the first thing I did was put 108 check boxes in the front of the journal. Every single night when I did that, I call it the cosmic checkbox. Like if you did something that you're just so happy and joyful about, like it didn't matter if it was 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and many times it was when I finished it, but I made that commitment, I did it, and it was so incredibly powerful. And it just built on each other. And I've had 2 people cry from getting the right page. So it's been really rewarding. And I never expected it to turn into this book now.
Kemi says great and thanks. And so I'm just thinking about what incredible quality time to have with yourself. Really,
Yeah, it is quality time with yourself. Yeah, it's super powerful.
Tiago does ask another question. I don't know if I should focus on. Oh wait, it's 2-parter. Tiago says, I also wanted some advice if I should start trying to build a business right now, or if I should study and build knowledge first, because I'm 21 right now. And I don't know if I should focus on college or try to manage both, because the pressure of those around me to focus on college is huge.
Well, The answer always is depends. And I would even recommend journaling about this and really getting deeper into that insight, or even asking for a sign or something to come forth. However, I as you get older too, this becomes more clear, is that the more you continue living for other people or doing things that they want you to be doing is not the right path for you, right? So at one point, my dad and I were really in alignment. I was going to take over the family business and do that, but then I realized that I wanted to do my own thing, and there's that became some friction because he was thinking that wasn't what he wanted for me. And then he didn't, he also, it's funny because a couple of years ago I actually interviewed him at one of our Maverick events, and so I'm asking him, like, what do you think when I left the company? He's like, yeah, he's a Russian immigrant, right? So his accent now, he's like, I don't think you make it. So, which is great. And so they want what's best for you, but they are looking through the lens a lot of times of what's safe and secure, what is normal, what's typical, what's the regular pathway. I don't really think that there's too many regular pathways anymore that are super valid. Now, if you want to become a doctor, if you want to become a professional in some way, then usually there is a typical career path. If you want to follow what you're most excited by, you can always go back to college if you really want. Like if you're thinking about this, college didn't become the expected thing till maybe 40 or so years ago, maybe 50. And before that, it was driven a lot by apprentice models. So you have the opportunity, especially right now, to just, like, there's so many ways of self-learning. Like my hockey buddies would laugh about all these tapes I had strewn all over the car when I was like 17 or 18, driving them around. But I really took the advice of one of my mentors, which was make your car a university on wheels. And so I would just continue, to learn and study and grow. And then I did go to college, so I got a BS in marketing and from a top 25 business school. However, I don't think I've used anything that I learned in marketing from my class. So, there's so many great teachings out there. There's so many great platforms out there that can teach you real world advice. So, I think that there's ways of learning by following what you're most interested in, and by thinking strategically about, okay, if I want to take a job, I would take the job for a skill set necessarily, not for like what am I don't know, like not just simply given into that moment of I should go get a job or I should go to college. And the shoulds too are a big deal. The shoulds that creates guilt, and it's usually driven from someone else.
Yeah, I see that. It's tough to give that advice, but in retrospect, you're thinking of how, those in school, what am I using now? I mean, I'm a chiropractor, I'm a doctor. I'm obviously using some things, but from a marketing perspective, if you're in internet marketing, I know a lot of people do a lot of internet digital marketing, have marketing firms online who did not go to school for marketing. They just figured out.
Yeah, you can learn so much right now by just doing, and I think that you have to realize, like, what is the college degree for? Like, is it to please your family, or is it to better yourself in some way, make yourself more attractive to employees or employers? Sorry, like what's the real purpose of it?
And he says, haha, yeah, I get it. Thanks so much for the insight. So he appreciates the comment there for sure. Yanik, I want people to be able to connect with you. So we have the links here. I'm glad we talked about the Cosmic Journal. I'm gonna get one because I'm gonna use that as my test to do my journaling.
There you go. Yeah, do the experiment in there. It's super powerful.
I have a funny feeling it's going to be incredibly powerful and valuable for me, and I actually know that's going to be. So I'm looking forward to that. I just need a little kick in the butt to get it started. But we're kind of wrapping up our time. There's not a lot of questions come in. So as I'm kind of leading towards the end here, if you have that question you were waiting to ask and you didn't want to, you're kind of shy about it, please get it out there. Great stuff tonight. Inspiring ways of looking at ourselves. Looking at, let's face it, if you would ask me 10 to 15 years ago, the purpose of starting a business was to make some money. What's the best way to make the most money? And I've learned that is not the way to go about it.
At the beginning, it's okay. And that's usually where we all start anyway. And that's perfectly fine. And at a certain point, and now I've been around some incredibly successful people. And I know it sounds trite to be like, oh, well, the money's not the thing. It's not the thing. It's like, we think it's the thing. But it's like, even asking yourself, if you ask yourself why 5 times, you can get to a deeper answer that way. And like, again, journal about it. Maybe use both your hands, use your regular hand, use your non-dominant hand to answer both 5 whys, and you'll get to something else. And that, if you can get to that answer faster, it's going to save you maybe from 10 years or 20 years of exploring all of it, and then realizing that the thing that you thought was the thing was not the thing.
Right. And then aligning something that you have passion about, you wake up, you're thinking about it at night, you can't wait to get to work the next day, the creation of it, getting it out into the world, creating a culture and a community around it. It's just, it's just a different way of looking at business. And
yeah. It's not all rainbows and unicorns though. Like being an entrepreneur, like you take responsibility for your own welfare, right? Like it's up to you. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, to me, that's where the real security is knowing that you would come up with an idea, or you can come up with an innovative way of supporting yourself and creating value in the world, and for something that's going to have a tremendous impact. And you maybe even contribute to your legacy in some way. Why not? Like, the time is going to go by anyway, regardless of what you do. Why not do something that really has greater meaning?
And if you're having a cosmic alarm during this 2020, pull the trigger. Start exploring ways that you can get excited and passionate about something. Whether it's your current situation and making it better, or it's time to modify it or scrap it and start something new. You can do it. And that's what this is all about. And I'm so happy that this was our last call, this last episode, and for Paycheck Solution. I think you really ended it for everybody really well with some questions and some thought and some inspiration on how to take this all to the next level. So I really appreciate being part of Crisis Investing, being part of Paycheck Solution, as well as spending that extra 90 minutes with us tonight has been an incredible blessing for myself as well as everyone in the class. So I appreciate that.
And my pleasure. Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Thank you so much. It was great spending some time with you this evening. And
yeah, you too. I feel like since you're going to be the proud owner of a Cosmic Journal, I feel like maybe we should get you to have a number. Do you want to do one last page and open it up?
All right, I'm going to give you 45.
45. All right, hold on. This is fun for me when we just seeing what comes out.
Yeah.
All right. 1 second. Well, you know what? We're gonna have to do it a different thing, because I don't know what happened to my. Actually, this will be good for you. So this is even better. All right. So I have a set of Oracle cards that are coming out with Hay House in November. They're available for pre-order, and so they're it's called the Cosmic Journey, and they're Oracle card decks that really create these journey prompts and so forth. So there's 11 what are called Cosmic Q&A cards, and then there's 44 just regular cards. And so the number 45 is actually, so this is the universe. And what you would do, so this will be your homework assignment if you want, for either your new journal, or you can do it tonight, is have a Q&A with the universe. And this is for anyone listening. So your right hand is gonna write the questions, if you're right-handed, and then your left hand would actually answer as the universe. So you might want to sit for a few minutes and even meditate, get centered around the archetype of what is the universe. How do you connect to that universe? And then you answer as the universe. And you can ask anything. So it's, so for Cami was asking about her purpose and so forth. This is a great exercise. So I do this where I have a Q&A with like my 111-year-old self, or my 11-year-old self even, or all these different archetypes. You can have a Q&A with a mentor alive or that is past. Like, it's a really, really powerful process. So I'll leave you with that.
So, well, my question just before we even end here is, you said a couple of times writing the question with the right hand, and then
Yeah.
why what's up with the left hand?
Well, so the left hand connects you it basically connects both parts of our brain, and there's like deeper wisdom that happens. And so our right hand, and you can even do this exercise. So that guy Bill Donius, who I mentioned, who teaches innovation sessions for Fortune 500 companies, the very first exercise he has people do is, if I was an animal, what animal would I be? And then you write it with your normal hand. And like, so for me, I wrote otter, OTTER. And I was like, okay. And then I did it again. You shake out your hands, and then you'll do it again. And most people will write a different animal. And so I wrote sea turtle. And so with your dominant hand, and in that aspect anyway, it was how do you want to present yourself to the world? Which is, otter was, more playful and so forth. And then a sea turtle was more about the timeless wisdom, and kind of like in Finding Nemo, that, hey dude, that timeless sort of 150-year-old sea turtle, that sage. And that was even more so of really a spirit animal for me, or a power animal. So that was really, really powerful to get into that. And then, so that's just one way. And it just connects us to, like, you don't want to think too much about it. You just simply want to allow it to flow through, and you'll be surprised at what happens. And then when you combine it with having that archetype conversation, that's when it gets really interesting as well.
Very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that as well. So thanks for that. And we're getting some comments on the side, just thanking us. Thanks, Cami, and thanks, Tiago. And people are starting to just say thank you for your time. And I'm going to say the same as well. Appreciated this tonight. And I appreciate everybody out there also. It was a great couple of weeks, right? 8 weeks. We've grown, we've learned, got some great modules that we got to listen to, and then we got to really sit, face to face with some great people like yourself. So thank you everybody for being part of this, and you as well for ending us off with such a great final class tonight. Appreciate you.
There we go. Yeah, and the universe sends us off on its way.
Yes. Well, thanks again. Have a great evening, and bye everybody.